If you know someone who would be an incredible guest for the show, so I'd love to hear about them. Just click the link below. And thank you all so much for being a part of this journey. I really appreciate you guys.
I think that without those experiences, I would not be as much of a people person as I am.
Welcome to another incredible episode of Purpose Driven Progress. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Hicks. And you guys, we've got a really great guest for you today, because today we've got Tagan Horton, a growth strategist with one of the most unique and purpose-driven career journeys I've seen. From building toilets in Ghana to fight disease, to working with nonprofits, to leading growth for startups and global companies like Expedia, Tagan's path has been anything but traditional. She's driven by a desire to solve real-world problems, and her story is packed with insight, heart, and hustle. Tagan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're super excited to have you. So, gosh, there's a lot to unpack there in that little intro. So, let's kind of start at the beginning. So, just tell us a little bit more about you, and kind of weave in some of these stories about building toilets in Ghana and all this fun stuff.
Absolutely. At 16, I was really inspired by the world. I wanted to travel and I wanted to start to solve some problems possibly. So I got on the internet and I found Global Leadership Adventures, which was a program that helps high school students complete mission trips around the world. And just a little background into my early sales or first pitch. I created a PowerPoint presentation that I presented to my parents and said, hey, I really want to go on this trip. Can we make it happen? And I did a couple of fundraisers and we made it happen. That was a really impactful experience because I learned a lot about how scalable and repeatable solutions can solve these large global problems.
Yes.
For instance, the lack of sanitation infrastructure was causing disease as early as 2 years old in the area that I was serving, Chita, Ghana, near the Volta River region. And sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second.
Sorry.
What was interesting from that experience to me was that we had a lot of buy-in from the community. Even though we were getting all of the labor, they contributed 50% of the resources that we used for that project. It was in college studying economic development when I was spending time in Senegal working with a women's organization of over 200 women. And that was an impactful experience for me because it also taught me the power of community. Those women came together after their husbands went on strike and they lost their jobs and they needed to eat. So they started by sharing food. So someone would bring couscous, someone would bring spices, someone would bring vegetables, and they'd come together and they'd create a meal. From there, they developed a little bit more organization where the president, Madam Sagartal, led them to start saving money. And they used those funds to start businesses. So where women would start in an open air market with just a small table and a few items, they could grow to have their own shop in their neighborhood where they can open their doors and invite their community in. Following those amazing experiences around the world, I really wanted to know how for-profit ventures worked. So I transitioned. I joined the Venture for America Fellowship in 2019, and that taught me a lot about startups and venture capital. I spent a summer in Detroit during their training camp. That kind of gave me that first real deep dive into that world. And as I left the fellowship training camp, I was able to dive into my first sales account management role at Groupmatics. Following that, I've had other account management roles, worked in social media as well for small businesses. And I'm excited to be working as a growth strategist now.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that story so much. And especially because, I'm a big believer that, education and, having goals, driving towards your goals, whatever they may be, obviously very important, right? But I love that, early on in your life, really, let alone your working career, you put some miles on your soul, right? Like you said, like you wanted to explore the world a little bit more and, do something of impact. can you just tell us a little bit more about like where do you think that you would be, I guess, if you hadn't had those trips to like to Ghana? Like what do you think you would be doing right now? And what kind of like long-term impact do you think that's had on who you are?
I think that those experiences definitely made me resilient. They made me strong, because I
Mm-hmm.
was able to see somebody living completely different from me. And then I was able to put
Mm-hmm.
on their shoes. I was living without electricity. I was not eating meat during that time because we couldn't afford it. Um,
Yep.
and I think that without those experiences, I would not be as much of a people person as I am. It would be
Mm.
more difficult to empathize with others because I would not have had those perspectives, those paradigm shifts that really taught me the importance of community.
Mm.
I think one of the biggest lessons that I've gotten from traveling has been to rely on that interdependence. It
Yeah.
is okay to have this knit of people that are woven together to support you. And what does it look like to rely on that? Uh, I think that translates for nonprofits or for profit.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head where, I've had some similar experiences to you. And I feel like in the States, and I don't know if it's like true everywhere necessarily, but at least in my experience, it's like you said, that interdependence. Like we feel like a lot, I feel like a lot of times we feel like we just need to do it all by ourselves, which, I mean, sure, yeah, you need to drive towards the things that you're doing, but nobody climbs a mountain on their own, right? Like we're all standing on somebody's shoulders. So, I mean, having that, like just that wherewithal and that insight, I think is fantastic. Just out of curiosity, like if anybody, like listen, like our younger viewers out there that thinks, oh, hey, maybe doing some nonprofit work like you've done or something similar could be worthwhile. Or maybe, some of our, the parents that are listening, maybe they think their kids could be interested in something like that. Would you have like any, recommendations or insights for some of those folks that think that maybe, going abroad or doing some sort of volunteer work somewhere in the world is worthwhile?
Absolutely. I think that it's always worthwhile to take your time and give it to someone
Mm-hmm.
else.
Yeah.
Um, and that goes back to that interdependence piece. It's passing it along. When you give that to someone else, someone's going to in turn give that to you. And if you've ever had
Yes.
someone pour into you, you understand the immense value that that can have. Um,
Mm.
and also just making these lifelong connections. Um, when you travel the world, you get to meet all types of people. And when you make those global connections, they are strong. You could
Mm.
be the first American someone gets to have an actual
Yep.
conversation with, and you can give them your global perspective. It's very important, I think, for diverse groups of people to travel in, as well in order for us to be able to give a full picture of our experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like like what you're saying is like we all need to, generally speaking, have maybe a greater posture of generosity, where, like you said, it's like we're giving our time, we're giving our resources, we're, giving our expertise, or, whatever the case might be. I mean, not that everybody all the time needs everything we have to give, of course, right? We need to be somewhat discerning in what we're doing. But like you said, like being willing to give like your time to, build toilets in Ghana that can help really save lives over the long term is incredible. But let's pivot a little bit. We probably need to talk some business, talk some shop a little bit here. So you mentioned earlier about, being in kind of like the startup world, being like you're dealing with like venture capital and those kind of things. So what do you feel like was like some of the more surprising or challenging lessons you've learned as you transition into like into the startup world especially?